Good morning to all. On behalf of the Department of English, I would like to welcome you all to Gottipati Sindhu Vimala Subbarao Endowment Lecture 4. Now, I take this opportunity to invite Professor Vani, Dean, School of Social Sciences, come on to the stage. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Madam could not be here. She will join us later. I extend a very warm welcome to today's speaker, Mrs. Maithili Basnurmat, to come onto the stage and occupy the chair. I also welcome Professor Haripadma Rani, Head in Charge, Department of English, come onto the stage and occupy the chair. I express my special welcome to Mr. N.R. Bunsnur sir. Once again, I would like to welcome all the students, research scholars, faculty members, Department of English, Social Work and Telugu. Thank you.
Distinguished speaker, Ms. Maithili Bhusnurmat and Professor Nijaguna Bhusnurmat, who is sitting amidst the audience, Professor Kiran Prasad, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi, Professor Nirmala, Professor Neeraja, Dr. Revati, dear scholars, students of the English department, um, social work department, journalism, and women's studies, economics. I extend a hearty welcome to all of you to this fourth endowment lecture. In the series of Gottipati lectures we have been conducting for the last 4 years. This is the fourth consecutive lecture the department is organizing. This endowment lecture was instituted by Dr. G. Vijay Lakshmi, who happens to be one of the alumni of the department. She did her PhD from the Department of English. She got it awarded in the year 2009. More about her later. So let's begin the program with a prayer song. Since the president of this function, our dean, will be joining us late as she is held up because of some exigency. I deputize her here as president. So let's start the program with a prayer song. This is the university song. Part of it will be played now. Thank you. Now, the next item on the agenda is presidential remarks. So, I skip that but briefly introduce you to this endowment lecture. As I have already mentioned, this was instituted in the year 2020, and so far we have had 3 endowment lectures. Today's is the 4th one. The first lecture was delivered by Yalamanchali Krishnahasa, that's Dr. Vijay Lakshmi's daughter. And then the second lecture was delivered by Professor Mamata Sagar from Bangalore, Srushti Institute of Design. And then last year, Vaishna Roy, editor of Frontline, delivered the third Gottipati Sindhu Vimala Subbarao Endowment Lecture. So to deliver the 4th one, we have with us today Ms. Maithili Bhusnurmat, about whom you will know more from Professor Nirmala. Now the responsibility of introducing the donor, Dr. G. Vijay Lakshmi, and the 3 persons in whose memory she has instituted this endowment falls on me. So I will just tell you very briefly a few things about Dr. Gottipati Vijay Lakshmi. She did her bachelor's and master's from Osmania University. Then she did her PhD from Sri Padmavati Mahila University, and she worked for several years both as a soft skills trainer and also as a lecturer, associate professor in several educational institutions such as Siddhartha Women's College, PB Siddhartha College of Arts and Science, Vijayawada, and then KL University. Apart from all these educational institutions, she also worked for IEG, Institute of Electronic Governance, for several years, where she, as part of her job there, she trained thousands of students and hundreds of mentors working in different engineering colleges of the combined Andhra Pradesh state. So as part of that, she was instrumental in training thousands of girl students to achieving jobs. So she has published more than 14 papers, a book. She has also done her postdoctoral from 2014 to 2019, and then she obtained her postgraduate certificate in the teaching of English from IFLU. She is a trained, a certified trainer in soft skills and all that. So this in right now she resides in Bangalore, with where her daughter also lives. And to say a few things about the 3 people in whose memory she has given us this endowment. Sindhu was her son. He was a bright and charming child who was very intelligent and mature, who sadly and unfortunately died young at the age of 16 in 1999 of an undiagnosed health condition. Though he is no longer around, he lives permanently in the hearts of all those who loved him dearly. Gottipati Vimala, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi's mother, was a homemaker, and she was known for her exceptional culinary skills. She made sure that everything she cooked was as nutritive as it was tasty. She was a loving and caring sister, wife, mother, and a grandmother. She died in the year 2013. Gottipati Venkata Subbarao, whom I endearingly called, Pedanana, was born in the year 1938. He served in the irrigation department for several decades till his retirement in 1996. So committed he was to his job and so amiable a person he was that it was hard to forget him for the people of the villages where he worked during his service. Known for his simplicity, he always wore only khadi throughout his life. He was an epitome of self-discipline and concern for others. His concern extended not only to humans, but equally to animals, plants, and to the resources of the planet as well. Unlike most of us today, he lived in such a way that he consumed less than what he could produce. Slogans like save water, save energy, don't waste time were all default practices at home. His day would start at 4 a.m. and he was the engineer, gardener, electrician, plumber, and carpenter of the house. The entire house except the kitchen was his workshop. In a nutshell, Gottipati Subbarao was a caring, committed, and hardworking person from whom his daughter Vijayalakshmi has fortunately inherited the trait of giving back with gratitude to those who make our lives better, and the proof of it lies in the present endowment she has given to the department. As the proud daughter of Gottipati Vimala and Subbarao, Dr. G. Vijayalakshmi is with us today, and I am very happy to welcome her to this. Okay. So now I invite Professor Nirmala to introduce our distinguished speaker to the audience.
Once again, a warm welcome to you all. Good morning. I deem it as an honor to introduce today's dynamic speaker, Ms. Maithili Busnurmat, who is going to deliver a lecture on a very interesting topic, financial literacy for women. I think which is certainly the need of the hour, and every one of us should be knowing about this. Ms. Maithili obtained her post-graduation degree in MA Economics from Delhi School of Economics and LLB from Delhi University. She is also a certified associate of the Indian Institute of Bankers. Ms. Maithili started her career with teaching economics in Delhi University in 1975 and later joined State Bank of India as a probationary officer in 1976, and after a 2-year spell in the operational departments of the bank, she was posted to the planning department where she worked till 1981. From 1981 to 1993, Ms. Maithili worked in the Reserve Bank of India, and during that period, she attended several training programs related not only to bank but in other fields. Ms. Maithili later joined the Economic Times, India's largest business daily, in 1993 and continued her services until 2004. In between, for a brief period during 94 and 95, she worked with the US Agency for International Development as Development Assistance Specialist. From the year 2000 onwards, she worked as the editor in charge of the editorial page of Economic Times, and she wrote editorials and fortnightly columns. With her wide networking, she could interact with the best mind in India and other countries and got some of the most respected names to write for Economic Times. She interviewed many Indian and foreign leaders, and it is really great coincidence that we have Ms. Maithili here with us today, who interviewed the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, who recently has passed away. It is really great to know that Ms. Maithili was the first woman editor of the Financial Express, a business daily in India, during July 2004 and August 2006. Her commitment and dedication as the editor resulted in the drastic increase of readership of this daily. Besides being an editor, she participated in many conferences in economics, finance, and banking, both in India and abroad. She even attended the prestigious meets such as the World Economic Forum meet in Davos and the Wilton Park Conference in the UK. Since 2016, Ms. Maithili has been contributing her services to the Economic Times in the capacity of consulting editor. Besides writing editorials and columns on macroeconomics, finance, and banking, she has been a visiting faculty at Times School of Journalism, Delhi University, Great Lakes Institute of Management, Gurgaon, and Terry University, where she teaches courses on financial markets and intermediaries and legal environment in business. She has also been invited as guest faculty at many institutes like IIM Ahmedabad, IIM Bangalore, MDI Gurgaon, and IMT Ghaziabad. It is very interesting to note that Ms. Maithili has been a consultant to the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council for many years, and she frequently participates in debates and panel discussions on TV ET Now, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, and Doordarshan and All India Radio. She also acted as the director, Institute of Social Sciences, Social Studies Trust, an NGO in the field of women's studies. During 2013 and 17, she worked as a senior consultant at National Council of Applied Economic Research, New Delhi, and as consultant editor for Economic Times. She also served as senior advisor for National Council of Applied Economic Research during October 21 and October 22. From December 2013 till date, Ms. Maithili has been serving as a consulting editor for ET Now, TV arm of Economic Times. We are very happy to have you with us, madam. Thank you for accepting our invitation. And before I invite Ms. Maithili, I'd like to give a brief introduction to another interesting personality here with us on this occasion. He is Ms. Maithili's husband, Professor Nijaguna Busnurmat. I'm equally happy to introduce you, sir, on this occasion. So, so it's a special occasion, ma'am. So I'm equally happy to give a brief introduction about him. Of course, his CV is also very, very rich and very motivating also. But for want of time, I'm not going to read out the entire details. Here are some of the important details about him. Professor N.R. Busnurmat, an adjunct professor at the Institute of Management Technology, Ghaziabad, was a former dean and professor in finance and banking in Management Development Institute, Gurgaon, and retired from the same institute after serving nearly for 16 years as professor. He also extended his services as the senior vice president in RBI's general manager grade. He has been a member on many boards. He held many prestigious positions, to cite very few. He is the visiting faculty at various management institutes, external member of the evaluation team for PhD at IIFT Delhi, advisor to NIIT University for their MBA Banking and finance expert on the Technology Development Board, Government of India, member of the jury for the Business Today Award of the Best CFO, member of the jury for Economic Times West Bengal Corporate Awards 2020. And besides his professional responsibilities, he could also publish research articles on various topics related to banking, marketing, finance, capital funds, corporate bond market, etc. in the journals of national and international reputation. Thank you very much, sir, for gracing this occasion. And now I hand it over to Haripadmarani for further proceedings. Thank you. I welcome Professor Sheila Swaruparani ma'am, our loving friend, philosopher and guide.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Nirmala, for that elaborate introduction to the speaker as well as the speaker's beloved husband. Thank you. From the little I have observed, just one more, supplement to what Professor Nirmala has told us about the esteemed speaker today. From the little I have observed of her in the last 23 hours since I first met her around 12:30 yesterday, she is a wonderful human being, very empathetic, very genial, and I think these qualities matter more than all the other qualifications. So we are very happy to have you here, ma'am. And equally genial and empathetic is her husband. Okay, Professor. Okay. Now, I extend my welcome to Professor Vijay Lakshmi from the Department of Communication and Journalism, and also to Professor Sheila Swaruparani, our recently retired colleague from the department. Thank you very much for coming. Now I invite our speaker to deliver the lecture.
Thank you very much for that very flattering and very elaborate introduction. So in fact, I thought I'd rung a promise from Vijayalakshmi that it would be a very brief introduction, but I found that it just went on and on. It made me feel absolutely ancient because I think almost everybody in this room was born much after I was. So anyway, so I hope it's. So thank you very much both to the university as well as to the faculty, all the faculty members, the Department of English, and particularly to Vijayalakshmi, who's a dear friend. So it's really been an honor and a privilege to come here. I must warn you that I tend to go like a bit like the Tufan Express. Okay, I talk very fast. So if you find I'm going too fast, please don't hesitate to raise your hand and say, please slow down. Okay, because that's what perhaps we all need to do in the 21st century, slow down. So I'll try to speak as slowly as possible. It's a bit of an effort for me, but please don't hesitate to tell me to speak slower. Okay, so then I'm talking when Vijayalakshmi asked me what would I like to speak on. So I said, well, the only thing I know a little bit about is about the financial sector. And I just thought that perhaps financial literacy is something that all of us really need to know, particularly as women, because I feel very strongly about the fact that women in this country, even though we have made so many strides in so many fields, we really have not been able to achieve as much as our potential, primarily because we lack financial independence. And even when we have that financial independence, we do not know how to exercise that independence. And until a woman is financially independent, not only in terms of becoming an earning member of society, but until she has a say in how that money is spent, because your money is your own money. A husband's money, however caring he is, however caring your parents are, it's never your money. Your money is your own, and that is something that every woman must recognize. Yes, you are part of a family, you might be spending it for the family, but the decisions are primarily yours, taken perhaps in consonance with everybody else. So I think what's very important to be financially literate, and to be financially literate means you need to understand what are the various terms that people kind of throw at you in the financial sector, so that you're a little bit more able to take informed decisions. So with that, I told Vijay that I'd like to speak about financial literacy, because in this country, as you know, even literacy for women has been a little slower, has not been as rapid as it has been for men. So in a country where literacy for women, just ordinary literacy, has lagged behind that of our male counterparts, financial literacy even more so. So I thought maybe if I could just introduce you to the concept of the need for financial literacy. What does it mean, and what do you need to do to become financially literate? The rest of it, all of you will do. You're all smart young women, much smarter than people of my generation. So you're all are going to go out there, get fabulous jobs, I know that. But once you get that fabulous job, once you get those fabulous salaries, what do you do with that money? Don't hand it over to your husband, to your mother-in-law. I'm sure your future husbands will kill me for saying this, but please retain control of your own finances. And how do you retain control of your own finances? Because if you don't know anything about finance, you will not be taken seriously. So I thought, let me just try giving you a little bit of sense of what financial literacy means, and why is it so important for each one of us to become financially literate. Okay, so I just thought I'd start with some interesting trivia questions. And this is where, when you read this slide, you will realize that actually in India, we are far ahead of the rest of the world. Whether it is our constitution, which gave equal rights to women to vote, unlike even the country like the US, where women got rights to vote so much later, the UK, where women got rights to vote so much later, in India, women were given rights to vote from day one. Likewise, there has never been a restriction on women opening a bank account. Whereas many foreign countries, Western countries, which we think are far more advanced than we are, they gave the right to women to open a bank account much, much later. So there the women lagged their men. In India, on paper, the women have never lagged men in terms of rights, in terms of access, but we ourselves are partly responsible for the fact that we lag behind. So I thought this is interesting to see that why is it that even though in India there was never any restriction on women opening bank accounts, why is it that only now Jan Dhan accounts, when Prime Minister Modi started that thing, Jan Dhan accounts, and said all government security, payments, pensions, etc. will be transferred to the women's account. Why did he say that? Because you give man money, you put the money in a man's account, what will he do? He will either go and drink, or he will smoke, or he'll gamble. He will certainly not spend it on the family. You give the money to a woman, what will she do? She'll spend the money on the children's education, on the children's health. That is one thing very good that the government has done. That all transfers from the government are transferred to the woman's account. Because when a woman is emancipated, when a woman is empowered, the whole family is empowered. So that is the difference between men and women. You can say that men and women, there's no difference, but there is a sense in terms of how women feel towards their family, how men feel towards their families. There is a difference, whatever you may say. You bring out, you have a son and a daughter, you bring them up identically, but you will find there's a greater difference. Women have a greater empathy towards others. Men tend not to be so. Hopefully that will change in the future. But this is something that is very empowering, that in India, all the transfers from government goes to women's Jan Dhan accounts. So not only do women have accounts, all transfers from government to the account goes into the woman's account. Subsequently, the husband may tell the woman that, look, you give me all that money. But at least he has to ask the woman. Earlier, the woman would have to ask the man. And that makes a lot of difference, So to that extent, I think we really are lucky we are in this country. But the fact is that all over the world, you find that women are less financially literate than men. Despite all the facilities, whether abroad, abroad literacy levels between men and women, they're more or less the same. But all over the world, when it comes to financial literacy, everywhere in the world, women tend to lag men. This is the sad part. Women have made strides in every other field. But why is there this gender gap? We talk about gender gap in so many areas. But in case of financial literacy, this gender gap seems particularly marked. So and as you know, then all of us, I think today's generation doesn't know what it is. Perhaps all of you get much better salaries, the youngsters of today, they really do not know what it means to stretch 1 rupee. But all of us know that our mothers are the smartest finance ministers in the world. With just 5 rupees, 10 rupees, typically in most Indian middle class families, like at least I'm speaking of myself, I come from a very middle class family. My father would give my mother a certain sum of money in the beginning of the month. She has to manage the finances within that money. What guests may come, guests may go, somebody might fall ill, but there was never a feeling that we didn't have money. Somehow she would find that 1 rupee would stretch and we would marvel. So every woman in India is a potential finance minister. That is why I think Nirmala Sitharaman is one of the smartest finance ministers. Why? Because she's a woman. Until she became finance minister, she was managing the household budget. And you know that there is no scope, at least as a woman, as a finance minister, she can do borrowing, she can do deficit financing. I'm not getting into the details of that. But governments have the ability to print money, governments have the ability to borrow. We know that we cannot go and borrow indefinitely. Today we have credit cards and all that. But all of us feel a little embarrassed to go and ask even a well-known friend, a neighbor, can you lend me some money? So all women know what it is to tighten your purse, to decide your priorities and manage to stretch that rupee. So all of us, when it comes to our household budget, we're the smartest of people. But why is it that when we go into the outside world, when we start earning, we don't know what to do with our salaries? So that is what is very important for all of us to learn. So why is there this gender gap? I think more than anything else, not even lack of education, a little bit of lack of self-confidence, but I don't see the women of today lacking in self-confidence. That is really one important change that has happened. Women in India today do not lack self-confidence. Access is there, we're a little hesitant. But I think more than anything else, society change in society comes much more slowly than other changes. So it is societal norms. Typically, you will find, suppose an investment advisors, now we all have investment advisors from various banks, they come to the house. So typically, if you open the door, they'll say, I'm come from so-and-so bank, I wanted to speak to you about investment advice. And they'll ask you, if you're not married, you're at home, they'll ask you, where's your father? Otherwise, you might say, where's your husband? Excuse me, I'm also earning maybe more than my husband, maybe equal to my husband. Speak to me. I have 2 ears, I have a mouth, I have a brain, no less than his, maybe smarter than his. So why aren't you speaking to me? But typically, everybody thinks you go to a bank, both of you are going, you're taking a loan, you're taking a housing loan, both of you are borrowers, right? And maybe, in fact, you're putting up the margin money. But the bank official will keep looking only at the man and talking, And sometimes we feel like saying, excuse me, I'm also going to be paying, that house belongs to both of us. I'm also going to be paying the EMI. Talk to me. So it's societal norms and all of us hesitate to speak out. So I think that is the major change that we need to be. You have to be the change that you want to see, which is what Mahatma Gandhi said, no? Be the change you want to see. So speak out. If you don't understand something, tell the branch manager, tell the investment advisor, I don't understand this. Explain it to me. Because what the fundamental rule of investment advice or any kind of financial literacy is that if you don't understand a product, do not invest in it. Something that you do not understand is not worth putting your money in. So that's a fundamental rule that I think all of us must somehow imbibe. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know. There is no sense of shame. It is much worse to pretend you know and then learn after having burnt your fingers. Am I going too fast? No? Okay. So, understanding financial literacy. So, I thought that since I've also been a journalist for most of my life, and I must tell you that the part of my career that I really enjoyed the most was as a journalist, because I moved from Reserve Bank of India to journalism. And Reserve Bank of India, as you know, with all government organizations, is a very stiff, formal kind of place. You say yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, and you don't disagree. There's a strong hierarchy, right? Whereas in journalism, that is not the case. You learn to question everything. In fact, an ideal journalist should be somebody who doesn't take anything for granted, because that's how, I think the biggest agents of change really are journalists, simply by questioning the established norms. So in journalism, what we have these, that every story must contain these W's, these 5 W's and 1 H. So I thought I'd start with that and apply it to financial journalism also. So the first W, which is who, I'm not addressing at all, because all of us are women. So the target is women. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about women. So next W is what? What are we talking about? We're talking about money. Money is what drives the world. If you don't have money, nobody respects you. That is a sad part of life. If you go into any restaurant dressed in tatters, unfortunately, human nature, you might be the most brilliant person, but if you go in tatters, nobody will look at you. You might be the most stupid person, but you go dressed very well, or you reek of money. People will look at you with respect. It should not be that way, but we are living in the real world. So we have to be practical. So what are we talking about? We're talking about money. Money is what drives the world. Sadly so, money is a very important element that drives the world. So when? I think there's no better time than right now. Start right now. Okay? So where every opportunity, wherever you get an opportunity to learn about money, to learn about saving, to learn about borrowal norms, please try and absorb as much as you can. And why? Because as I said, money empowers you, just like literacy empowers you. When you are able to read and write, why do you think men kept women down for so long? Because the moment we become smart, they're worried that we become smarter than them, then we'll start questioning them, right? So where every opportunity, because money, as I said, financial literacy empowers you. Financial literacy empowers you even more. So it's very important. And how? By listening to all kinds of talks, everywhere, wherever you get an opportunity, please keep your eyes and ears open and never think that something is too trivial for you to understand, because you never know. And this is not only about individual financial products, but also about the larger macro economy. So if the Indian economy is doing well, then you must know that the Indian economy is doing well. So how will you benefit? If the Indian economy is not doing well, if markets are not doing well, should you take your money out of the stock market? Should you put it in safer avenues? Where do you draw the line? How much in stock market? How much in banks? How much in insurance? All this is possible only if you have financial literacy. So as I said, you can read this, because only if you have the financial skills will you be able to budget, save, invest wisely. You need to know all these things. And only then, if you have some understanding of the financial terms, will you be able to comprehend what is written in any articles, anything in the paper. These days, you have so many people giving you financial advice. Can you trust that advice blindly, or do you do your own homework? Ideally, we need to do our own homework so we don't trust whatever somebody tells us. As I think it was Nixon who says, trust but verify. So trust the person, but verify whatever he or she is telling you. Don't blindly follow anybody's advice. You be your own mistress. Do not take anything for granted. Okay? Because the more financially literate you are, we're all, fortunately or unfortunately, we're all going to live for a very ripe old age. And women typically tend to outlive men. The first few years, typically, I think it's been found that the first 5 years of livelihood, more male children survive. Possibly that's again because of past societal norms where parents took greater care of girl children than of women, etc. But once we've beaten the boys to the 5-year age group, then women tend to outpace men. We live longer, we're smarter, we're very much more capable, etc. We don't get easily distracted. So since we're going to live longer, we need to understand our finances. And gone are the days when jobs were secure. Government jobs with a short pension are no longer there. Even in government, now you have what is known as the NPS. You don't have a fixed pension at all. So we need to be able to manage our finances to see that it's enough for us to last our livelihood, at least our lives. You want to leave something for your children, that's a different matter. You want to donate to society, that's a different matter. But you should have enough to last your life, and you should be able to kind of live as well as possible. Okay, so the more financially literate you are, the better it is all around. So this I leave you to read for yourself while I have a sip of water. So what does financial independence do? It basically enables you to manage your own finances well. Because unless you manage your finances well, you are not sure you'll have enough not only for to last your lifetime, but for a rainy day. We all know that we have government hospitals, but given a choice, most of us would prefer to go to a private hospital perhaps. Now these hospitals cost money, so you need to have enough money not only to live for your day-to-day existence, but also to have for a rainy day. You want to have money in case you fall sick, in case you want to help your parents. You want to help your parents fall sick. You don't want to have to ask your husband, can I send some money to my mother? You'll be able to do it yourself, right? If you have the money, you understand what is the best way of helping your parents, you will be able to do it on your own. So financial independence, you make informed choices. You have much reduced vulnerability because, as I said, today there is no job for life. All of us have jobs today. Tomorrow, 5 years hence, 10 years hence, you may not have a job. So until such time as you get another job, or if you want to take a break, you do want to work for a while, you need to be able to manage your finances such that you have that luxury of taking a break. We're not working because we have to keep body and soul together. We're working because we like to work. It empowers us. It gives us a chance to kind of learn from people, interact with people. We don't want to be tied down at home. In fact, every woman, one very sad, easy example of why women are smarter than men is that typically the man earns, brings money home. That's all he does. The good man, he takes some help with the house and looks after the children. But every woman who's working is managing two jobs. She's looking after the house, she's looking after the office or work, and nobody asks her how she's doing this, how she's doing this jugglery in between their children to be taken care of. And even in the most emancipated relationships, typically it is a woman who shares more of the household burden. So women are much smarter than men. They want, just ignore my husband for the moment. Huh? They're smarter than men any day. Okay. So we need to know, because then we have reduced vulnerability. We're not dependent that if I lose my job, what do I do? We have something, because when we have money, we are able to make choices that we don't have otherwise. Because the moment you lose a job, you'll have to take up the first job that comes your way. If you have some savings kept aside over which you have control, then to that extent you have choices. You are able to make choices. So to that extent, I think it's very important that women really understand finance, are able to take their own decisions, and then decide what do they want to do with their decisions. Of course, your decisions could be wrong. As with anything in life, decisions are sometimes wrong, sometimes right. The thing to do is to learn from your wrong decisions, so that next time we don't make the same mistake. Everybody makes mistakes, let's accept it. So that's not a point at all. So what are the benefits really of financial literacy? I'm leaving it to you to read, because as I said, in the interest of time, how much time do I have? You want me to finish by 12:15 or 12:30? 12:30. Okay, so I'd like to have some time for question answers. So as I said, since I've been a journalist for most of my life, you please don't hesitate to ask me, and there's no question as a dumb question. The only things dumb in this world are dumb answers. There is no dumb question. So please don't hesitate. So shoot questions, and journalists, if they can't answer, they have no business to be in the field. Okay. So please don't hesitate. So I'm in the interest of time, I'm not reading out anything. Please make a note of anything that you feel doesn't make sense. But as I said, financial literacy, the benefits go much, much beyond. A financially literate woman, mother, wife, all of these are assets to the family. So never hesitate. If you don't understand something and you have a smart person coming and telling you, invest over here, never hesitate to ask, please sit down and explain to me, what are you trying to say? And with somebody today, particularly stock market, there are so many avenues where people seem to think that there's money to be made for free. Please don't hesitate. Never hesitate to ask questions. If you don't understand something, step up and say, I don't understand, explain it to me. And until you are fully satisfied, don't buy that advice. Okay? So when do you start? I think you start right now. Never hesitate, never leave it for tomorrow. if you are earning or even if you are not earning, please keep in touch with what is happening in the financial world. Understand why things are happening the way they are. What are the different forms of saving? What are the different forms of investment? Why should you prefer product A to product B? What are the risks? You should be aware of that. Okay. The sooner you start, as I said, I'm not reading this, you can read it, because only if you're financially literate, it's very, very important. All of us obviously are literate. But financial literacy, we tend to be a little hesitant about. We say that, look, let the man take the decision. So either it's the father until you're married, once you're married, it is the husband or the mother-in-law or somebody who takes financial decisions. If you are earning, and I hope all of you will go out and start earning, because there is nothing as important as financial independence. Once you have got that financial independence, you must have a say in how that money that you earn, how is it going to be invested? You must have a say, never hesitate, and you will be able to make informed choices only when you have the necessary information. So you must empower yourself with financial knowledge, whatever you read in the papers. And today there is no dearth of financial information. All of you are in the lucky generation where you get so much of information that you have to be careful that you have to weed out the misinformation, right? Growing up, we never had so much information. So the few people who gave you information were by and large people who you could rely on. Today the problem is that there is so much of information and misinformation that is being thrown at you that you need to be very careful to weed out the misinformation from the correct information. So do your research and never hesitate to ask questions. There is no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. Please remember that. Okay, so never hesitate to ask. When you ask, you're only showing your eagerness to understand. You're not displaying your ignorance. I think women, all of us, particularly Indian women, because of our upbringing or because of society, etc., we hesitate to speak out. That's one thing I think we need to get over. There is no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. Okay, please remember that. So never hesitate to ask, because if you don't ask, you will never learn. So please don't ask just for the sake of asking or creating disruption, but ask because that is the only way you empower yourself. Okay, then. So this I just thought a little bit of, so this is what he's saying. So this guy, as you can see, he's all in tattered and torn clothes because he says, ever since I discovered the savings habit, I found it impossible to make both ends meet. So this is one extreme. The other extreme is where you live way beyond your means. And today I think, it's very easy to live beyond our means because there are so many people offering very attractive things, 2 for 1, 5 for 1, etc., etc. And banks and agents will come after you, offering you so many things. So it's very difficult to resist that temptation. So it's important to understand that even as you save, it should not be one extreme or the other extreme. The famous Buddha's middle path. That's what we need to see. Save a little, spend a little, enjoy life a little, also be a little serious at times and reflect. I think it's a combination of things that's important. So why do we need to be financially literate? I think it's very, very important. This is as important as the 3 R's. Being literate is one thing. Today, I think, fortunately, almost I could say with some pride that there are very few women in this country who are truly, completely illiterate. But literacy is one thing. Being financially literate is something else. So I think it's very important that we understand financial literacy because as we know, knowledge is power. But knowledge of Shakespeare is not power because Shakespeare, okay, he tells you things like never a borrower or a lender be and all that, but that's not enough because in today's world, the best thing to be both a lender and a borrower be, as long as you don't borrow more than your capacity, right? So today we need to be financially literate. It is not enough to just have literacy. The 3 R's are not enough because knowledge, as we know, is power. And financial knowledge is true power because without money we really have no power, right? So it is Mao who said, no, what power comes through the barrel of a gun? But today I think power comes through the barrel of not of a fountain pen alone, but of the knowledge of finances. Because unless you're financially independent, I think this is very important for women. I think gone are the days, and I don't know whether I'm going to start a revolution here by telling all of you that please don't hand over your salary check to your husband. All of you decide, yes, this is my money, this is household money. And your money you should have complete discretion over. So I think that's very important for us to understand. If knowledge is power, financial power empowers us much, much more. It is nobody respects you if you don't have the, unfortunately in the world, right? There are very few people who will respect us, a Buddha or a Mahavir or something like that. In the real world, unless you have money, Mao said power comes through the barrel of a gun. But today power comes out of your purse if it's well stocked with money, right? So women must understand finances. They must be able to exercise choices of their own, and that will come only if you're financially empowered. So I think the rest I think you can read anyway. The presentation is with you. You can go through it later. So as I said, unless you are financially literate, you're not going to be able to take wise decisions. And you are not going to be able to share, even if you're married. Don't leave all financial decisions to the man. Be an equal partner. Be a part of the financial decision making, because you are as much going to suffer or benefit from the consequences. So you need to be financially literate. And financial literacy comes only if you have understanding of finance. So as I said, it helps you if you are able to understand finances, you're able to understand the various financial products, understand what you're talking about, so that you just don't blindly follow, whether it be your husband or your father. People respect you when they know that you understand what they're talking about, that you don't blindly believe them. So I think it's very important that all of us should be financially literate. So that's what I'm hoping all of you are going to be at slowly over the passage years. And it's very, very critical, I think, that we, especially for women, because today there are so many temptations. During my time growing up, we never had credit cards like the way we have today. We never had people coming after you and say, buy two for the price of one, do this, do that. And they never told you what happens if you borrow too much. Credit cards were very new when I was growing up. Today, credit cards are such a temptation. Very few of us realize that the very high rate of interest that they charge on credit cards, it may look very tempting to spend today and worry about it tomorrow. And though you can borrow, I'm not saying don't borrow at all, but borrow only within your repayment capacity. And you decide, is it something that will enable you to repay what you have borrowed, or is it something else? So I think being financially literate is very, very important. So all decisions have a repercussion, not just today, but many of the decisions that we take have a repercussion much, much later. And I said, children, as I said, they tend to be, particularly smaller children, they tend to be influenced much more by their mothers than by their fathers, fortunately, right? So I think you imbibe this habit in children right from the beginning, that if you get pocket money, whatever be your pocket money, don't spend all of it. Keep aside some money, because you never know. Tomorrow, even a small child might go to a shop, might see a toy which is beyond, his capacity to buy. But if he has some savings in a piggy bank or whatever, then you take that money out. So children, I think you should start them to understand what is the meaning of saving. How do you live within your means? If you want a nice toy which you cannot afford today, teach them how to save. And I think here, children are much more influenced by their mothers, because typically even today in India, mothers are the ones who spend more time with their children. And if you spend, and they learn more from the mothers than from the fathers, at least until a certain age. I think up to a certain age in India, mothers still have a very much more powerful influence on their children, whether boy or girl, than the father. So I think it's very important to make them financially literate. And it's also very important that we all realize that whether it is a boy or girl, it is equally important for both of them to understand money, the meaning of money. How do you save? How do you invest? Live within your means. Today, at the time of credit card culture, you have so many temptations around you. It's a little difficult to explain that why should you not go on borrowing as if there's no tomorrow. But it's important, I think, to teach children right from when they're very young. What does a budget mean? How do you save? You like a nice toy. Okay, even if you can afford to buy that toy, don't buy it immediately for the child. Tell the child that, look, this toy is a little expensive. You try and save from your pocket money every month. And then when you have saved, you pay 50% of that toy, I will chip in 50%. That's how you teach children how to be financially literate, how to save, how the value of money. So I think these are all very important things. And I think in India, even though we women have made enormous strides, I think till about the age of 15, 16, women still have a much more powerful influence on their children than the men. So I think it's important very important for all of us as women to be financially literate and pass on the understanding of financial literacy to our children as well. So how do we kind of become financially literate? As I said, there's so many, today there's no dearth of information. In fact, today the problem is, how do you segregate information from misinformation? That is what is very important, particularly because you have so many things floating around. Access to information is so easy, but access to misinformation, unfortunately, is even easier. So you have to make people understand, what do you trust but verify. That is a very important saying, I think. You trust, don't mistrust everybody immediately, but verify, do your own homework. Don't just blindly believe, because you must understand nothing in the world is available for free. You have to pay either the right price or the wrong price, but you have to bear the consequences of your financial decision. So I think it's important that every one of us, particularly women, understand the meaning of financial literacy, understand how do you save money today, how do you build a nest egg for tomorrow, so that at any point of time you are financially independent and you pass on that independence to your children. Because typically in India, fortunately or unfortunately, I think those of us who are mothers have a much greater influence on their children, particularly in their growing up years, as compared to their fathers. So it is important for us to pass on that information to our children, to make them empowered. And you can only pass on that information if we ourselves are empowered. So it's very important for us to understand the host of, there's so much that is there in the market. And also understand that while greed is important, because if we were not greedy, see, at the end of the day, it is greed that leads to progress, isn't it? Otherwise, if we were not greedy at all, we would all be like Buddhas, very happy just doing nothing, no? But greed is important, but up to a certain point. And how do put that greed into action? Where do you invest? What are the kind of products? What do you do? So that knowledge is ultimately the most empowering thing. So I think it's important for all of us to do that. Do our homework well, understand where we're investing in, understand that there are different kinds of financial products, and then invest. Okay? So please read about this, because here again, tax planning. Why have I brought it in? Because typically, it is not that everything that you save, the return you get. Government taxes and they have different rates of taxation on different things. So apart from knowing about the different financial products, it's also important to know how much is taxed. What are the government's taxation policies, so that you save wisely and in the right avenues. So this is very important, that you understand tax policies. And whenever somebody tells you, oh, here is something, invest 1 rupee and in 10 days time you'll get 200 rupees. Excuse me, did I understand you right? Please explain. And never hesitate to show ignorance. The best way of understanding a product is to say, stop, please explain it to me. And if you don't understand, don't feel shy to say, I haven't understood. There is no such thing as being ashamed of ignorance. Until you understand a financial product, particularly because these days there is so much of mis-selling, never hesitate to say, stop, I haven't understood. Explain it to me. Because we women tend to be we tend to kind of be a little shy. We're not outspoken. A man will not think twice of saying, I don't know, I don't believe in this. But women tend to be, that's just the way our society is, Indian society. It's changing slowly, as you can see in this room. I see only 2 men, I think, which is such a wonderful change. Earlier you would have seen 2 women and all the rest men. So this is part of change, but we still have a long way to go. And the way to go is by asking questions. Unless you ask questions, you will never move forward. And there is no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. So please don't hesitate to ask until you are fully satisfied, particularly when it comes to financial decisions. You're parting with your money. So until you are fully satisfied, you're convinced, do not part with your money. And you must remember, do your due diligence. There's no such thing as I said, a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. Okay? So please don't hesitate. Use all opportunities. Read as much as you can. These days you have so many television programs. But if you listen to some of the television programs, they'll think that stock market is where you need to invest and become a multi-millionaire. But that's not how it happens. So understand financial products. Understand where to invest. Understand how are you going to invest. Be financially empowered. Track your investments. As I said, review your portfolio from time to time. Be a little wiser. So what does literature tell us? I thought since all of you are English students, I should now move to a little bit away from finance into what literature says. Okay, so this is what literature tells you. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. This is Shakespeare, what, 16th century? Today, both a borrower and a lender be, right? Borrow when you need, lend when you can, and when you see the opportunities are right. So those are olden times. Today they are, but at the same time, don't borrow beyond your repayment capacity. That is very important. You have all these loan sharks who will come after you saying that, look, please borrow, very attractive, very attractive. But don't do all that. Only borrow for what you need when you're sure you have the ability to repay. And so I've given you some more quotations. He says, this is of course Doris Lessing. This borrowing is not much better than begging. I disagree. Borrowing is good, but only when you have the repayment capacity and when you're going to borrow to invest in something that is going to give you a return. So borrow wisely, don't fritter it away. If you borrow to invest, it is very different from borrowing to spend. When you borrow to invest, that investment is going to give you some return. So always never hesitate to borrow, but do not borrow beyond your repayment capacity. And once you have borrowed, invest it wisely. Don't get just carried away by whatever people tell you. Do your own homework. Always do your own homework. Never depend on somebody else. There are so many loan sharks, so many people who tell you so many things, but don't do that. See, nothing like an empowered woman who knows, who understands. Because the moment we understand, we'll ask the right questions. People should stop thinking that women are dumb. We're not dumb. We're much smarter than men, right? It's taken us some time to catch up because all these years, women always felt that the husband takes the right decision. Until you're married, the father takes the decision. So typically, most women in India would hand over their paycheck to the husbands or the daughters would give it to the father. Gone are those days. You are earning, you are your own mistress. You decide. If it is family, both of you decide. I'm not saying that you say, no, this is my money, I won't give it to you. But you decide your priorities together because you must remember that you are earning. If you are earning, in many cases, the woman is earning more than the man. So she has as much right in the spending decisions and deciding where the money is to be invested, how it is to be saved, how it is to be spent. So these are, kind of various quotations which I thought maybe that all of you as literature students might be interested in. So as you know, Shakespeare lived many, many centuries ago. Today we're living in the 21st century. So we really don't have to go by what Shakespeare said, but it's interesting to see how society has evolved, how it has changed over the years. So what is the message earlier? Stay away from both lending and borrowing. But today's consumers society, what does it say? Credit cards, people coming after you saying, spend like there's no tomorrow, live beyond your means. What are you doing? So you tell somebody comes around and asks you for a credit card, and you say, no, I don't like to borrow. I hate being a borrower. I don't like to owe money to anybody. What century do you belong to? No wonder you have grey hair. Because today's belief is borrow, spend, and don't bother about repayment. But all of us, we don't like to kind of not repay, right? We would like to repay. You don't want to have a loan shark coming out of your house. Somebody is waiting, your credit card dues you've not paid. So that chap has come from HDFC Bank, he's standing at your front door. So you quickly slink out of the back door. You don't want to do that, right? You want to be able to live. Yes, you find something expensive. You want to use a credit card, by all means use a credit card. But only spend as much as within your repayment capacity so that you are not, always feeling that you've lived beyond your means. You need to, nobody is saying don't borrow. Those ideas, neither a borrower nor a lender be, those are all Shakespearean ideas, not in today's world. Both a borrower and a lender be, but within your capacity to both borrow and your capacity to lend. Okay? So today, consumerist society, you go anywhere, there's so many things. There's so many things that tempt us. So many lovely things. Growing up as a child in India, there was really nothing that I could buy as a child. There were no temptations. Today there's a surfeit of temptations. There are so many temptations. All of us go into the market and then people tell you there's this, there's that, you want to buy this, you want to buy that. But always remember, whatever you buy, you have to pay for, right? If not today, tomorrow. So always remember that there is a cost to everything. So what do we do? So if you have a fixed deposit in a bank, what are you doing? You're basically lending to the bank. So at the same time, sometimes when you want to build a house, for instance, because this is a very expensive proposition. Building a house, none of us can do it from our own savings. So we all contribute a little bit, the margin money, and then we take a loan from the bank. So the old ideas, neither a borrower nor a lender be, those are old ideas. Today, both a borrower and a lender be, but within your capacity. You lend as much as you can spare and borrow within your capacity to repay. So it doesn't happen that you're always looking over your shoulder to see that loan shark is waiting for you to step out of the house. So why do we need to save? This we all know. Lack of job security, very, very important, because gone are the days when we all had jobs for life. Today, none of us, except for few in the public sector and government jobs, none of us has a job for life. All of us will have a job for 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, whatever, and then you'll have to look for another job. So in between that period, unless you have some savings, you will be forced to take the first job that comes your way. If you want to have choice, and all of us want choices in life, you must have some savings to fall back on. So this is very important. Save for a rainy day. Again, joint families. I think joint families are increasingly breaking up. Growing up as a child, I remember in my grandmother's house, there would always be a couple of people floating around who we didn't even know who they were. But they were just people who didn't have jobs. They just came in for some time and then they went away and they were fed and they were clothed and etc. etc. So today that's gone. Joint family systems itself are breaking up. So you don't have that support system. So you need to start from day one. The moment you pass out, look for a job, try keeping aside some money for a rainy day, because a rainy day will come. For all of us, a rainy day will come. Okay? So, but at the same time, you have saved, but what do you do? There's so many people coming after you saying, put money in this, put money in that. So where do you invest? How do you save money? But what do you do with that money? As you know, because of inflation, if you keep the money safe in your house, that same money will fetch you less and less. So you have to invest somewhere. Now, where do you invest? There are so many avenues. You must know where to invest. So who's going to tell you? The bank fellow will tell you, put it in the bank, put it in the bank. The insurance fellow will tell you, buy an insurance policy, buy an insurance policy. So how do you know which is the right advice for you? Because the advice for each of us is a very individual choice. It depends on our own circumstances, our family circumstances, our income levels. So each of us has to be financially literate. Financial literacy is very, very critical to take the right choices. So there are different kinds of avenues of investment, so many different kinds of investment. You have the traditional banks, then you have many other choices. You have government small savings, public provident funds, you have capital markets. Everybody is looking at the capital markets. You will see how stock markets are going up. As you can see, there are so many different avenues. Pension funds, I think in earlier days nobody thought of pension funds. Typically people stayed in joint families, and if you grow old and you didn't have any income, you just went and parked yourself in that joint family. Nobody asked you any questions. You got your meals on time. No, but today that is gone. The moment you have to provide for your own old age, and you youngsters who are a fraction of the age that I am, you must understand that there will be nobody to provide for your old age. Don't depend on your children. Children have lives of their own. Every one of us who thinks, oh, my child will look after me, don't put that burden on the child. It's unfair to the child. If the child knows that you are financially independent, you're financially empowered, the child has that much more freedom. At the end of the day, all of us want our children to go out into the world, experience the world for themselves, not say, oh, I've got an old party sitting at home, I can't go here, I can't go there, I have to look after her. So I think the best thing we can do for our children is not make them feel guilty about the fact that they're going out in the wide world. The future is theirs. Our day is done. So I think it's very important that we become financially independent. It's very, very critical. So pension funds, insurance, these are all products that we never had in the past. We only had life insurance. We didn't have any other kind of insurance. Health insurance was unheard of growing up because you all went to government hospitals. Today, all of us, very few of us would like to go to government hospitals, partly because we're not able to cater to the numbers. If you want to go to a private hospital, you need to have money. And you need to have your own money. Because unless you have your own money, you cannot stand up and say, I don't want to go to the municipal hospital, I want to go to Apollo. Somebody say, where's the money? I have my own money. So I think financial empowerment is very, very important, particularly for women, because, or especially even for you all at the time of crux, the changing society. Even now, women don't speak out. They don't tell their husbands or their fathers that I want to do this. It's my money. So the man's money is his money. The woman's money is also the family's money. That must change. I'm not starting to start a revolution here. I think it's very important that all of you realize that you are empowered. It is your money. You might decide to spend it for the family. That's a different matter. But you are the decision maker along maybe with the rest of the family. But don't abdicate this right. Don't just hand over your salaries to your mothers-in-law or your husbands, etc., etc. I hope there are no husbands hiding out there or mothers-in-law hiding over there, because I truly believe that people respect, sadly in the real world, people respect, I wouldn't say only money, but money is a very important part of that respect that people have in society. If you don't have money, nobody cares for you. It's very sad. But we have to open our eyes to the real world. In an idealistic society, you wouldn't care whether it was a beggar or the prime minister or the chief minister who came. But we are all human. So when the chief minister talks to us, when the prime minister talks to us, and a beggar talks to us, there is a difference in our body language. So at the end of the day, the fact is that if you are financially independent, people look at you differently. You can make your own choices. You do not have to ask somebody else. And a very important part of being able to make that choice is to understand the financial product. So you have all these LIC agents who will come and tell you very nicely, they'll come and give you a little gift, they'll rub their hands and tell you, please invest in this, please invest in that. If you do not understand the financial product, you're likely to be led astray. So it's very important. I think financial literacy is very, very important. Every woman must use every opportunity to become financially literate and never hesitate to ask questions. There is no such thing as a dumb question. There is only a dumb answer. Please have that thing. The problem with most of us Indians, especially Indian women, we've been brought up to kind of be a little shy, be a little behind the scenes. So even when we want to ask questions, we hesitate. Drop that hesitation. You people are the next generation. You are youngsters. There is no such thing as a dumb question. As I said, there are only dumb answers. And the people call it dumb question only because they don't have the answer. So there's no such thing. Never hesitate to speak out. If the person doesn't know, it's a different matter. If you don't know, that's how you learn. But if you don't ask questions, you will never be enlightened. So never hesitate to ask questions because it is your money. You might use it for the family, but your consent, your informed choice is a very important part of the decision making. So you need to understand, here's this guy, see, he's trying to understand, there are so many technical terms. But believe me, today because of the internet, it's not difficult to become financially literate. There's so much information and so much of misinformation also, frankly, that is available, but it's not so difficult for you to understand. You just have to get over the diffidence of having to ask. Never hesitate to ask. That's what's very important. So there are these cardinal rules, I think, for investors. So I think that what I put in bold is perhaps the most important part. Only invest if you understand the product. If you do not understand the product, do not invest. And don't get attracted by these stock market returns. The stock market is giving you fantastic returns. Stock markets go up, go down. So unless you are a very active investor and you have the time to play the stock market, better to go in for things that are, like regular incomes, regular investment schemes. Those are far, far better than trying to play the stock market. So I think it's very important that we decide every month saving is important. Saving in different avenues is also important. Don't save only in one particular kind of product because different products serve different needs. So depending on your need, set some money aside for tomorrow, for the day after, set some time for old age. All of you are youngsters. The sad part about life is that all of us grow old. There's no choice. We don't have a choice. So that is one thing that is certain about all of us is that we will grow old. And once we grow old, we will no longer be able to earn. And it is very important that we have that financial independence. Only if you have financial independence, sadly in the world, do people respect you. It is very sad, but it is true. The moment you go to ask a person for money, the equation changes. So it is very important that all of us become financially independent. All of you I know will go out into the real world and start earning. But please remember that don't just hand over that money entirely to a husband or to a mother-in-law. Keep at least some of the money for yourself because there's no such thing as you can only be fully empowered when you're financially empowered. That is very, very important. True empowerment comes with learning, with understanding, with literature and all the rest of it. But ultimately in the real world, sad as it sounds, unless you have money, people don't respect you. I'm not saying you need to be the equivalent of Bill Gates or something like that, but you need to have enough money so you don't have to ask somebody, even if it be your son or your husband. You should always go out, earn, keep some money aside for your own, and remember that it is your money. You have earned it. It is yours. Okay? So only invest in what you understand. If you don't understand a product, tell that guy, look, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're talking. You might think I'm very dumb. I'm a dumb woman. Fair enough. I've no problem with that. In India, most people anyway think women are dumb, so I'm quite okay with that. But you don't have to let them on. What you don't understand, do not invest in. Don't let greed. All of us at the bottom of our hearts, we're all greedy, right? But greed must go along with understanding and with knowledge. Okay. So see, safety. I think for all of us, I think women tend to be more. I think we're a little bit more conservative than our male counterparts. However, whatever you may say that men and women are born equal and all the rest of it, I strongly believe in that. We're everywhere equal, but men tend to be a little bit more adventurous. Women, we are more bothered about safety. Safety is very important for us. So I think it's important that we always keep that in mind. Don't let greed overtake you. Typically, I'd like to say, apologies to my husband over here, greed is more a male trait than a woman's trait. Women always have learned to balance. We are not greedy by nature. I'd like to think that at least, okay? So at the same time, does your savings have liquidity? What do I mean by liquidity? You put your money in a fixed deposit, you suddenly a child falls sick or you fall sick. You need money. Where do you go to get that money? If you put your money in a way that you cannot liquidate it, that means you cannot get it out of the bank, then it's of no use to you. So you should have liquidity should be a very important factor. You need to save, but you need to have access to your savings. That is also very important. So liquidity. So at the same time, government what it does, they treat the tax treatment of different forms of savings is very different. Because government also wants to encourage people to invest for the long term, to save for the long term. Because government doesn't want money which is only for a short term. If Nirmala Sitharaman wants to build a bridge or a canal, she doesn't want you to give her money today and say, give it back to me tomorrow. So long-term savings are there, short-term savings are there. So you need to have a little bit of understanding of how governments treat the different kinds of savings instruments. Typically, the tax treatment on long-term instruments is little lower. So a 30-year instrument will be taxed little lower, maybe even tax-free, as compared to a 1-year product. So you must understand the tax treatment also of the different financial products, because ultimately it is a tax treatment that decides how much money you will get in hand. So learn to be financially empowered. When should you take a loan? Do you take a loan just because I've seen a fantastic dress over there. It costs a bomb. So I must have it. It's the latest fashion. So you go and borrow, because these days borrowing is very easy, right? You have all kinds of people willing to give you that money. You buy that dress, you wear it for a party, everybody tells you you're looking wonderful, and next season it's completely out of fashion. Nobody is going to look at you in that dress. So you must know that what am I using my money for? What is my repayment capacity? Very important, because you don't want somebody coming after you all the time. You borrow some money and you're not able to repay. Every time you turn a corner, you find that agent over there. So you run the other way. You don't want that also to happen. So whenever you kind of take a loan, you must be informed. What is your repayment capacity? Do you really need it? What are you giving up because of that? So is there a difference? As I said, my point number 4, and then the 4. Is there a difference between buying a house and a car? Is there a difference? A car is better. You can come to college. House, it doesn't move. What will you do with a house? How many people would rather have a car than a house? How many of you would rather have a car? Nobody wants a car. I would like a Ferrari. Like that, right? Nobody, all very sensible people over here, right? Yes, because in a house you are actually saving a huge amount of rent. It's a roof over your head. You can't go and stay in a car, right? You can stay in it for 1 hour, 2 hours, but you can't stay there. So you must understand the different kinds of financial the different products, the different kinds of ways of financing that product. A house might give you rent. You build a house, the lower floor, then you can build an upper floor. You can give it on rent. How many of us have seen a car with an upper floor? You tell that fellow, okay, you cannot do my upper floor. I'm driving this car, climb up. Can we tell that guy, no, isn't it? But in the case of a house, you can live in the lower floor. You can tell the other chap, okay, I'm renting out the upper floor. You give me money for that. So you must understand the different kinds of products, the different kind of repayment capacities. And I'm not saying don't take a loan. By all means take a loan. But it should be such that it is within your repayment capacity. And you have your priorities. And so as I said, compare the rate of return that you're paying and the return on suppose you're taking a loan to buy a house. What are the rents that you're going to save? When you're staying in a rented house, you were paying rent. Now you're staying in your own house, so you're saving on the rent. How much are you repaying for that loan? It makes sense if the rent that you're saving is less than is more, and the loan that you're paying, right? The repayment of the loan. So just compare the rates of return with what you're paying back. So I said, see, this is the situation. I just thought this is a lighter note to end on. So here somebody has bought a huge car, and the father has borrowed so much to buy this huge car, so he doesn't have money to buy petrol. So they're all pushing the car. So you don't want to be in that state also, right? Today we all have credit cards. Growing up as a child, we didn't have credit cards in India. So today credit cards are a big, big temptation. You can borrow today and return later. But what most people don't realize is that the rate of interest on credit card loans is huge. So never live beyond your means. That famous saying, neither a borrower nor a lender be, right? All of you are English students. So though today we have changed, we're saying both a borrower and a lender be. Please borrow, please lend also, but within your own repayment capacity. Okay. So here is that. See, here's the situation. In today's consumerist society, what happens? It is so easy to get loans. Everybody's telling you, here's a loan, here's a loan, here's a loan. So here's this poor woman, she's sitting like this. and he's finally paid out the last installment on everything. Car, house, fridge, TV, washing machine. This lady doesn't have anything. She barely has clothes to wear. He can't even buy a pair of trousers for himself. What is he going to do with that fridge? Can he wear that fridge? I hope not. Okay. So I go on to banks. So you can just read it. In the interest of time, I'm not going to waste time. So you must remember that all banks are not the same. You have government-owned banks, you have private banks. But in India, you also have something known as deposit insurance, and you have the regulator, which is the Reserve Bank of India. So Reserve Bank of India never allows a bank to truly fail. You will not lose your money entirely, but it's always better to be sure of the bank that you're putting your money in. So do your homework, do your due diligence. Of course, public sector banks are the safest because there is the government behind them. But private sector banks are also not unsafe because the government will not allow any private sector bank to really go down. And you also have things like deposit insurance. So you need to do your homework well. Understand which bank is a good bank, which bank. So though no bank will fail, don't just go by the rate of interest on the bank. Okay? So you need to understand financial literacy is very, very important. For every working woman, I think financial literacy is very important. And today, luckily for you, you all belong to the generation where there is perhaps a surfeit of information. You have more information that you really can absorb, and a lot of it is misinformation. So your generation's problem is, how do you separate good information from wrong information? Our generation's problem was, where is the information? So times have changed so dramatically, but it's very important for you to understand what is right information, what is wrong information, and this segregation is very important. Again, stock markets. We've seen the way stock markets have run up, but you must understand that it is a law of gravity that applies ultimately. So those stock markets may not collapse. There are likely to be corrections in the stock market. So suppose you need money, suppose somebody falls critically ill at a time when the stock market has collapsed. You cannot say, okay, I'll admit you to the hospital next year when the stock market will go up. So and so, your father, your mother, your child needs hospitalization today. Stock market has collapsed. So understand financial products. Understand that stock markets are not a one-way street. There is no such thing as reward without risk. Every reward comes with some risk. So only look for those items where you can bear the risk. If you cannot bear the risk, don't go in. Don't let greed be the only factor. We must all be greedy. If we were not greedy, none of us would be here. All of us as women, we'd be sitting at home. It is greed. It is the desire to do better that brings us here. But greed is good up to a point. So when you are greedy, also remember to be cautious. Have your antenna up. It's very, very important. Okay. So as I put in bold at the bottom, that timing the market is near impossible. Don't believe everything that you hear. If your neighbor has made a lot of money in the stock market, good for him. You decide what is good for you. That is very important. Okay. Then again, I talked about the different financial products I thought I'd talk about. So again, insurance. You have different kinds of insurance products. Growing up as a child, we never had health insurance in the country because there were no private health insurers. If you fell sick, you went to a government hospital and God help you, right? Because even though with the best of intentions, government hospitals are very good, government doctors are very good, but our sheer numbers meant that government hospitals could not give you the kind of care you need. So today you do have private health insurers, but please read the fine print. Whenever you go to take an insurance policy, please remember that what they write is very, very small. You might have to use a magnifying glass to read. That is the most critical information. Read that. Don't just get taken by the bolt. Read and never hesitate to ask questions. I think somehow I think our condition in India particularly, as culturally, all of us have been brought up to be a little hesitant. We're a little diffident. Whereas a man will come out boldly and say the most stupid things. The woman will hesitate to say the most sensible things. So we don't ask enough questions. We need to understand. If you don't understand something, say, I don't understand. Explain it to me again. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. I think this is what every woman needs to imbibe, particularly in India. Because all of us in India have been brought up with a belief, it's changing slowly, that women should be a little retiring. The guy will go out. The woman will take a second, step back. Don't do that. Never hesitate to ask questions. Because there is no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. So please remember, speak up, ask questions, and never be satisfied until you get the right answer. Okay? So think of, again, pension. Gone are the days when everybody got pension. Today we don't get pension. The private sector is much, much larger than the public sector. There is no such thing as a lifelong pension. All of us have to think of the fact that one day, sounds hard to believe, that one day all of you, yes, all of you will also grow old. And joint family systems, those are all breaking down. We have to provide for our own old age. It is not good if anybody, or any one of us, has to ask, even it be a son or a daughter, anybody, because apart from parents perhaps who really give whatever they can, there is no other relationship, even the most affectionate of child, it becomes difficult, and we also do not want to deprive them. So you have to be financially independent. So you need to think of pension today. So once you stop working, once you stop earning, you're no longer financially dependent on somebody else. You are financially independent. And that financial independence comes only if whatever savings you have, when you retire, you're able to invest in the right kind of product. And for that, financial literacy is very, very important. Today, all of you younger generation are very lucky. There is a surfeit of information, too much of information. Your problem is that how do you separate wrong information from right information? My generation, the problem was, where did we get access to information? Today, you're a lucky generation. All of you, there's so much information. You don't need to worry about where do I know about this product. You need to know where do I get the right information. Who can I trust? Because remember, it is your hard-earned savings. You should have the ultimate decision. You should be the ultimate decision-making authority. And at the end of the day, you should not have to go and ask somebody, I need to go have an operation. Can you give me some money? No. If I need an operation, I have my own money. Why should I ask anybody else? I don't need to ask anybody else. So start small. There is no such thing as a small saving. Every day, have that habit of regularly investing. The moment you get your job, set aside some money, whatever it is, 100 rupees, 200 rupees, 50 rupees, regular investment. It will amount to a huge nest egg by the time people like you retire. And remember that in your generation, your future generation, family systems are going to break down. The joint family system has already disappeared in my times. In your times, even the individual nuclear family will disappear. All of us have to be financially independent, man or woman. The moment you ask somebody for something, the equation changes. You must be able to stand on your own feet. And that means being financially independent. And that the time to be financially independent is by setting aside some money, however small. Regular investment is very important. The moment you go out and get a job, keep aside some money, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, whatever. The power of compounding is so much that by the time you people grow old, it's a long, long time, it will amount to a nice nest egg. Along with that, use every opportunity to learn about finance so that you are the decision maker. You don't have to tell a husband or a mother-in-law, where do I put this money? You see, ultimately, unless you have money, nobody respects you in the world. It is sad to say that. But the moment you ask, neither a borrower nor a lender be ideal, but it's much better if you have to choose between being a borrower or a lender. It is far better to be a lender than to be a borrower, because then you are empowered. So best is to kind of be your own master. And ultimately, you can only be your own master if you have your own money. Sadly, in the world, people do not respect you if you don't have money. Whatever you may say, we may be in the land of the Buddha and Mahavira and all the rest of it, but the actual reality is that people respect you only if you have your own money. You're financially independent. So as youngsters going out into the world, you must know about the different financial products. So that is my attempt to tell you. So thank you very much. Dhanyavadagulu or whatever it is. So any questions? I'm completely open to questions. And please remember, I said, please remember that there are no dumb questions. There are only dumb answers. So do not hesitate to ask any question, because unless you question, you will not learn. So please remember, my answer may not satisfy you, but that's because I'm not able to satisfy you. There is no such thing as a dumb question. Please ask. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for that very stimulating talk, and for the repeated iterations, and the last statement, which also happens to be the last thing with which you ended. There are no dumb questions. There are only dumb answers. So at least that should motivate all the students to feel free to ask questions. So use this as your first opportunity to ask questions. Okay. I welcome our respected Dean, Professor C. Vani, the Dean of the School of Social Sciences, Humanities and Management. Welcome, Madam. stage. And I invite the participants to ask questions. Now this is a QA session. Before you think of your questions, I want to use this opportunity because I wanted to know what NPS is. I went to the bank because the bank manager, when I went there, she asked me to, madam, NPS open an NPS account. What is it? You will get some returns, madam. I don't know much about it. Then I asked a couple of people who I thought might know about it, but they also couldn't tell me much. But the only thing I know is you get some tax concessions if you have 50,000, up to 50,000 investment in NPS or something like that. So I want to know more about it from you. I want to use this platform for.
No, I think it's very important because when you're young, you never think that you'll grow old. But the fact is, it's a fact of life. Every one of us, including you youngsters over there, you are going to go old one day. Time and tide, as English students, no, wait for no man, right? So you have to provide for your own future. Gone are the days when, government jobs, you always got a pension. Today, even in government jobs, they have all moved to NPS because government found it was not possible to kind of give the kind of pension that they used to give in the past. So I think the NPS scheme basically enables you to invest for your own future. So I think it's important that right from day one, you start keeping aside some money for your old age because the time and tide, as all of you know as literature students know, wait for no man or for no woman. So it's a sad part of life that it's difficult to believe that one day we will grow old. And the sad part of life also is that people respect you only if you have financial independence. It is a fact of life, sad as it may sound, that if you go with a begging bowl, nobody will look at you. They will be nice to you for 1 day, 2 days, depending on your equation with them. But beyond a point, financial independence is very, very important. Maybe even more than being physically independent. As you grow older, you might be in a wheelchair, you might need crutches. But if you have your own money, people look at you differently. The moment you ask a person for money, the equations change. So the NPS really is a scheme that the government has come up with because increasingly what has happened is that government jobs are becoming fewer and fewer. The private sector is becoming more and more important. The private sector does not believe in pension because today you might be working with Tatas, tomorrow with Birlas. So there's no lifelong employment. In fact, the years of lifelong employment have gone, except in government. There is no lifelong employment. All of us have to look for new jobs periodically, right? Sometimes it will be retrenchment, etc. So in that case, you need to think of your providing for your own pension, which is why the government came up with this new pension scheme where you set aside some money for yourself. And that you can decide where it is to be invested, what kind of investments you want. And that is why the government has come up with this NPS. And depending on your stage of life, you have different kinds of investment patterns. So when you are young, you can put more in risky investments. As you grow older, like I, today, of course, I'm beyond the pensionable age also, you try to put in safer and safer investments. Because at the end of the day, what you want is you want return. Definitely you want return because of inflation, the same 100 rupees with which you could buy so much money earlier, today you can't, right? So you have to account for inflation and you also have to account for return. So you must understand both liquidity and return are important. So it's important for you to have that financial literacy to understand what kind of scheme do you want to get into. So the NPS gives you a provision. There are different kind of breakups. How much in equity, how much in safe investments. So depending on the stage of life at which you are, when you're young, you can take risks. Also financial risks. As you grow older, your ability to take financial risks becomes less and less. So then you move from a more risky kind of breakup of your savings to a less risky breakup of your savings. So the NPS government came up with this scheme because increasingly they realize that government jobs are not going to be the kind. Growing up as a child, my father had a government job. Most of you who are not, of course, I think perhaps the most ancient in this room, but most of us would have had fathers or grandfathers in the government sector. Today, government sector provides a very small part of jobs. Bulk of you will go out and work in the private sector where there is no old age security. You have to be your own old age security. You have to be your own pension provider. So you must understand what is the NPS. So the NPS, the government came up with the NPS. It's called New Pension Scheme, though it's no longer new now, where you provide for your own old age. And depending on the stage of life at which you are, when you are young and you can take risks, a higher portion of it goes into equity, which is stock market kind of return. A lower portion goes into safe returns. As you grow older and older, you can choose. You can shift the balance from more risky form of investment to less risky form of investment. The idea is that by the time you become of pensionable age, you don't have to look for the government to give you pension. You don't have to look for a benevolent employer. You become your own pension provider and you decide how much is going to be in risky investments, how much is going to be in safe investments. So this is a new scheme. It's no longer new. It was introduced more than 20, 30 years ago, which empowers all of us. But you have to start taking the decision from day one. So the most important thing, a piece of advice I think I'd like to leave you youngsters with is that from day one, the day you start working, open an NPS account. Even if it was 5 rupees, 10 rupees, 20 rupees, whatever be the amount, open an NPS account. And subsequently, you can change the balance between equity and safe investments. When you're young, you can take risks.
How frequently can we change that?
You can change whenever you want. There's no issue on that. You can change it.
Every month?
Not every month it becomes difficult, and for you also it won't make sense because typically when you're young, you can take risks. As you grow older, you cannot afford to take risks. So when you're young, you will put more in equity, which is risky, and less in fixed returns. As you grow older, you put more, but I would advise every one of you, the moment you get a job, open an NPS account because you will not have a benevolent father, a wonderful son, a wonderful daughter. Every one of us will have to become independent. Financial independence is very, very important for every one of us. The moment you ask somebody for money, whether however good the child is, A, you don't want to burden your children. B, respect changes. There's a change in equations. Financial independence is very important. So you be your own financial provider for your old age. All of you are so young. You cannot think in terms of old age. But believe me, I was also young once. So any questions? And please remember, there are no dumb questions. There are only dumb answers. Okay? And if you're not satisfied with my answer, please say so. But please don't hesitate to ask. Because if you don't ask, you will never learn. So please, as I said, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Please ask. So either I was very good, there are no questions, but I don't believe, or either I was so bad that all of you slept. And I don't like to believe the latter. At least some of you must have listened. Right? So please ask. Please. Yeah, I can hear. Yeah. I think it's improved dramatically. I think now women are much more empowered than before. And I think the biggest thing that was holding women back in the past is that in India, even we hesitate to ask. No, men will come, stand up and ask the most stupid question with the straightest of face. They never think they're stupid. That's something about maybe our society where men think they're very superior beings, and women always have a little hesitation. That is why if I had given this address to a group of men, they would have rubbished everything that I said, convinced that they're right. That male arrogance, it's something that's happened with our society, not all over the world. There is a certain male arrogance which comes of having kind of being master of the world. We need to question that. And when you question a person with information of your own, that is why I think it's very important for women to be financially empowered. It's not enough for us to be very smart computer engineers and other things, and then hand over your paycheck at the beginning of the month to your husband or father-in-law or mother. No, buddy, I earned it. It's my money. You want to share, we'll share. But you're an equal partner. I think, and to be able to say that, you must be financially empowered. And you can only be financially empowered if you know enough. So don't hesitate to ask. I think the first thing that we in India need to come out of is, we are innately little hesitant. We're all little, is it a dumb question? There is no such thing as a dumb question. There's only a dumb answer. Please be very clear. So men never, have you seen the men around in India? They ask the most stupid questions at times. But women, we hesitate. That hesitation, I think we need to get out of. And only if you get out of it will you be able to learn. Unless you ask questions, you won't learn. So there's no such thing, as I said, as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. So please ask. Shoot. And as I said, I'm a journalist. No. I think unfortunately students in India, particularly. What about stock coverage? Huh? Okay. What was she asking about stock market coverage? I didn't get it. Yeah, just use the mic. Sorry, I didn't get your hear that bit. Oh yes. Not so, I believe to the generation, strongly believe that don't think in terms of men and women. We're as smart as every man on the street. The moment you think that, financial education or financial literacy is a particular newspaper are concerned. Yeah, no, because I don't think there's a need to look at women's needs as different. Our needs are just the same as men. Our priorities are just the same as men. All of us wish a better future for our children. So I think the moment we start thinking in terms of finance as having a gender angle, I think don't look at finance as having through the gender angle. Your needs are no less important than that of a man. You need to understand stock markets, financial products as much as the man. So to assume that finance is the man's portfolio and the household and other things are the women's portfolio, I really think we need to change that. I think many more women, I think, and you find a lot of coverage of products that are meant for women. There are very few, fortunately, I would say, of products that are exclusively targeted for women. Because I don't think money doesn't have a gender. Money speaks. Well, so I think it's important that all of us realize that we need to be financially empowered. And the first lesson for financial empowerment, we need to earn our own money. The moment you have to ask a husband or a son, and I think all of us sitting here, we believe that, and even the young students, they want to be financially empowered. That's why they're here. It is your money. You must remember that. If it is your money, you have to take the decisions or be an equal partner in the decisions. To be an equal partner in the decisions, you must have financial knowledge. So every opportunity to learn about financial products, learn about it and be a partner in the decision making also is what I would say. I think it's very important that we do that, because then we will understand and we will be able to take advantage, which is, I think, money has no gender. Money is authentic news. See, unfortunately, we're living in a world where I really do not know whether there's anything that you can vouch for. So I would always say, listen to everything that is said. Don't have a closed mind, but then do your own homework. Verify. Trust but verify. I think this is a very famous saying, I forget by whom, one of the American presidents, I think. He said, trust. So don't disbelieve everything you see. Listen to everything but then verify. Do your own homework. Don't believe everything that, and especially women, we hesitate to ask because we think, is that a dumb question? You think, oh, she doesn't even know this much. There is no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. Please remember that. And women tend to hesitate to ask. That's something maybe about our culture, the way we are brought up. Men never hesitate to ask the stupidest question a man will ask. But it'll never occur to him that he's being stupid. Women will hesitate to ask. That's why even in a class like this, in a place like this, if I'm sorry to sound sexist, but if this was a room full of men, they would have bombarded me and questioned me on everything because they think they're so smart. But women, we tend to be a little, especially in societies like India, we tend to hesitate to speak out. That must change. You're in no way less than any man. That must be the fundamental belief. Second question is that there is no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. If you get a dumb answer, please say, I don't believe it, I don't accept it. Question at every point in life, question. And if it is your money, you must have a very important say in how it is invested. That again, I think, is very important. And that can come only if you're financially literate, which is why I think use every opportunity to ask questions. Don't take anything on blind faith. Huh. No, it's okay. There's always a rebel somewhere. Yeah, if you didn't have revolutions, we wouldn't be here, right? All the women who fought for emancipation, right? Men always like to keep women under their thumb, no? But no, and they can do it if you don't have the right questions. If you start asking intelligent questions, then they look at, where did you learn that? When did you learn that? Because don't believe blindly. So you can only ask questions if you have you have some knowledge yourself. And I think all of us in India, women, we tend to be a little hesitant to speak out. What if it's a foolish question? What will people think? In India, that's a big thing. What will people think? Do you think any boy, any man ever thinks, what will people think? Otherwise, they wouldn't do half the things they do. It never occurs to them because that's partly our society. Men over the years have been brought up to feel that men are smarter than women. Okay, use it. No, I'll tell you. So the best way of using your credit card is to earn yourself. If you are earning yourself, then you're not bothered about the credit card because husband tells you, "Oh, you've run up this big bill." You say, "Sure, I've run up this big bill. I felt like having a blast, but I'm going to pay it with my money." That makes a difference. The moment you go and ask him, "Oh, I went and had a party. Can you give me some money?" That's very different from saying, "Yeah, I felt like having a blast. I had a blast. I took all my friends out. We had a good New Year's party. I have the money, I'm going to pay it." See, that is the. So, yeah, financial literacy is very important. So, I think you are a lucky generation. There is enough on television. There are so many channels, whether it is ET Now or CNBC, etc. And there's so much NSC, all these companies, they run financial literacy courses. So, never hesitate. And let me also tell you, there is no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers. So please don't hesitate. Women in India tend to hesitate to speak. You're always worried. What if it's a dumb question? What will people say? What will people think? You think the men in this country ever think before they ask questions? They'll ask the dumbest of questions with the ultimate, so much arrogance. That's partly because our society is a bit like that. So don't hesitate to speak out. Never hesitate to speak out. Everything must be taken as a learning opportunity. That's the only way you'll learn. And always remember that you can only ask the right questions if you have it's back with the right knowledge. So please don't hesitate to ask. As I keep saying, there's no such thing as a dumb question. There are only dumb answers.
I request the president of this function, Professor Sivani, to hand the memento to our distinguished speaker, Ms. Maithili. I now request our Dean Madam to give away memento to Dr. G. Vijay Lakshmi, the endower of this endowment lecture. Photograph. Okay, తర్వాత. Yeah.
A warm afternoon to one and all present here. It was a feast to our ears listening to you, ma'am. Really, yeah. I'm sure you all had a delightful time listening to madam. Okay, I feel privileged to propose vote of thanks on this occasion, and my hearty thanks to our Dean Professor Vani ma'am for spending her valuable time with us today. We owe our thanks to Dr. Vijay Lakshmi ma'am for her generous contribution towards endowment lecture, and I profusely thank Ms. Maithili ma'am for accepting our invitation to deliver a lecture on financial literacy for women. Ma'am, I thank you once again for your insightful, enthralling, highly informative, and spellbinding lecture. It's a spellbinding lecture. Everybody was listening to you with rapt attention, madam, because the way you delivered and the topic that you chose to deliver today, it was a very nice. Ma'am, so I heartily thank Professor Basurmat sir also for gracing this occasion, for spending his time with us today. I especially thank the faculty from other departments, especially Professor Vijayalakshmi ma'am, Professor Kiran ma'am, Professor Uma garu, the faculty from Women's Studies department, from Telugu department, for spending their precious time with us, being with us today, and a deep sense of appreciation and thanks to all the participants here, be it research scholars, students from our department, students from other departments, yes, for their enthusiastic participation. And I'm sure there is so much to take home for them today from this lecture that you have listened to, ma'am, right? And I extend my thanks to this non-teaching faculty of our department, Kotamma and Rukmini, also for their support. I last but not least, I wholeheartedly thank Mr. Narasimha Rao and Shyam and his staff for extending all the support in providing us with necessary equipment for the smooth functioning of this event. If I forgot to thank anybody here, forgive me. I thank one and all. With this I end my speech. Have a wonderful day.